Hi, I'm Dannielle Miller, author, educator and volunteer board member at The Sanctuary, which is a refuge set to open later this year for women fleeing domestic violence here in the Hills. And I'm talking today to the boss of Castle Hill Police Station, Superintendent Robert Critchlow. How are you, Rob?
I'm well, thanks, Danny. How are you?
Good, lovely to see you. You're also on the board with us at The Sanctuary.
Yes.
And I thought it would be timely to ask you a few questions. Can you tell me a little bit about reporting of domestic violence here in the Hills? Do the police here get calls from women who are afraid for their safety as a result of intimate violence?
Well, sadly, the police are called by members of the public for help in relation to domestic violence every day.
Right.
We have on average one domestic-related assault every day that's reported to us, and it's probably 5 or 6 domestic incidents that happen for every assault. So there's a lot of things going on. In New South Wales last year, we had about 70,000 domestic violence incidents, which means some sort of degree of conflict,
Right.
and we had about 28,000 assaults. So
Right.
sort of, roughly sort of two and a half to 1 of those incidents become violent and become assaults.
Right. And these would be incidents where those involved have become so concerned that someone's actually called the police. So there'd be a number of incidents that are happening where the police wouldn't be involved.
Yeah, the evidence indicates domestic violence is underreported,
Yeah.
and it's always estimates, underreporting. At least 50% underreporting, so I think it's a reasonable figure. And we're probably looking at least double the amount of things that we know about that are going on, if not more.
And now, so when you would get a call like that, how would the police respond to it?
Obviously, the safety of the person reporting is the primary thing, so make sure they're safe and well. If they need medical assistance, we'd obviously send an ambulance.
Yeah.
We'd also look at what threats they're facing at the moment. If they're away from the person when they call us, it obviously reduce the risk. If the person was still there and being violent, we get there in an urgent sense, which is called code red, where they put the license sirens on and they zoom there and rescue the person. So sometimes the people come to the station, they get the courage to break away, come and see us in the station, and we deal with it then. Or we're called to an incident, or someone else calls us. Might be somewhere in public. It could be an assault or an argument happening in a public place, and we'll go in there and respond, of course.
Yeah, okay. Now, when we're talking about this, I mean, obviously, we're sort of quoting lots of statistics and we're trying to be really informed here, but the reality of me listening to this is this must have a huge toll on yourself and your colleagues witnessing crimes like this, Can you tell me a little bit about how this affects you personally?
Oh, look, it's very upsetting. We had a matter the other day where the lady was essentially at risk of her life. We rescued her, got her into care. Her children were distraught, and we felt very satisfied we could help her, but very frustrated what she'd been through. So it was a great personal achievement. Sometimes, and I'm driven by, when I was a young detective at Mascot, we had a lady was killed by her husband, as reported to us, and I charged and arrested him for murder, and that's driven me along ever since, to see what happens when a relationship goes to the ultimate dysfunction. And sometimes we get frustrated as police when women aren't able to break away from the relationship through various reasons. And there's a lot of pressures on women in relationships to either maintain finance because the husband controls the money. They have nowhere else to go physically. They have no other resource where to live. Their children are in school, and the mother puts their interests before her own, so she'll suffer violence just to keep them up. Or there's no refuges to help, and that's what's really probably taken me towards supporting the cause of the Sanctuary and getting involved. Yeah,
so one of the first things, when I first heard about the Sanctuary, it was at a community forum, and I remember you standing up and speaking about the urgent need for this, and I was quite shocked that there hadn't been a refuge in Castle Hill at the moment that women could go to if they really needed that emergency accommodation.
Well, you probably know that Sisters of Charity had a refuge at St Michael's, and that was a great resource. And when it closed down, we noticed the gap straight away.
Yeah.
And as I said, what happens if there's nowhere else to go? They stay at home.
Yeah.
And these assaults, domestic violence is often goes through a cycle and of build up, eruption, make up, peace, build up, eruption. This cycle goes on. And if you don't break it, it keeps going on. Sometimes it gets worse and worse, and the violence becomes very physical and very damaging. So it's awful that we need a resource like that. But I'm very proud that we have secured one.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm really proud of you for your involvement in it. And I know you're very humble about this, but can you tell us a little bit about what role you might have played in sort of establishing the Sanctuary here in the Hills?
Well, I think it's reflective of how good the Hills is as a community, and I was able to use my connections, I suppose, in the community. I was aware that there was an interest in setting up a shelter, that the Lisa Harden Foundation was driving the project, that they'd taken on as a key mission. and I was very supportive because I wanted somewhere for my police to be able to render assistance to their customers, who were these women suffering domestic violence. So I had some discussions. I went to the public forum, as you went to, and lent my, I suppose, the police support to the mission. Spoke with some authority about what we suffer locally, so everyone had some context. But the foundation was struggling trying to find somewhere, and because of my connections in the community, because I have a number of different roles, I was able to speak to the towers and the management there, Martin Ellis, knowing that they had some properties in their portfolio for strategic business reasons, through conversations, and just put it to him and said, "What have you got?" And he said, "We need somewhere to put some ladies in distress," and they came back with more than we ever asked for, and it's sort of rolled from there. And I've given the project some advice on security and what the needs of the refuge, and then provided a link between the public and the service providers.
To the sanctuary itself, I mean, it's quite incredible that QIC, Castle Towers, have donated this property, and it's large enough to accommodate 6 women and their children, if they happen to have children, and for them to be kept in safe.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about security? Because, I mean, that must be a huge concern for those women and a huge concern for the community. So how are we going to ensure that those women are safe there?
Well, as a first principle, we're keeping the location of the sanctuary secret.
It'd
be nice
I don't know where it is. I know I'm on the board.
It'd be nice to trumpet where it is and show it off. I can tell you, though, it's not far from here, which is great. So
not far from the police station?
The police station. And so the police will physically be driving around it and not nearby. They will know where it is.
Yes.
Physically, the premises is secure with security locks and screens and at a high standard. Also, what we're very proud of is that QIC have installed high-quality CCTV, digital CCTV, which will be piped into the station here, into my sergeant's office.
Directly.
Yep, which is manned 24 hours a day. With a duress alarm. So if something comes, some issue arises causing the occupants and residents distress, they'll hit the alarm, let us know. We can then use the cameras to zoom in, because we don't want to be going there all the time either. If we go there in uniform, we're attracting attention to the place.
Yeah, right.
So whilst we will go there for sure when they need us, we'd rather be able to make an assessment remotely and bring them, speak to them, give them advice and say, look, it's a delivery person, don't worry, because obviously clients of the sanctuary will be pretty nervous. They're under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and they may jump at shadows, so we can give them no comfort. Conversely, if there's someone there that we need to deal with, we'll get there quick smart because it's very close to the station.
Fantastic, thank you. That's amazing, Rob. And I've been really touched by the amount of support for this from the Hills community, and particularly touched, I suppose, by the police support for this. And I think it's going to be a wonderful resource, and hopefully you won't need to use it. But by goodness, if you do need to, it's important to know that it's there.
Look, it'd be a great testament if the place was empty. But
do ourselves out of business.
That's right, and redundancy is a great thing in this space. But I think that history tells us it'll be full, and probably with a waiting list as soon as it opens, even before it opens in principle. We also may support other areas. We may have some high-risk clients from other areas of Sydney that need to get right out of their own district to come to safety. So we may be providing a haven, a sanctuary. For those fleeing really severe violence in other parts of Sydney, because service is service, and hopefully the Hills is a safe place for them to come to. But it's an exciting project. We're very proud to be involved. We'll support it. We'll make it work. We're working with the board, obviously formally, but informally, we'll obviously be using our resources of the domestic violence officer and probably the youth liaison officer, some of the kids, to give the kids some support to help them have as positive a time as they can, and try and get them forward out of a terrible situation.
And I think brilliant for everyone to know just how state-of-the-art and best practice the security measures in place are. Because I know on our Facebook page you've already had a few people sort of flag, how can you keep these women safe? And it's just wonderful to know that they're in really capable and experienced hands.
Look, without putting them in an armoured facility in the middle of nowhere, because they've got to live. They've got to live. And the house from the outside will look like a normal house. It's a lovely house. It's a nice suburban place.
It is beautiful, modern.
It is.
Brand new.
It's spick and span, best we can possibly. It's wheelchair accessible. The resources are there for all different sorts of needs. And it'll be a nice suburban house, a nice suburban street, with the police just quietly keeping an eye on it. They'll know they have the little blanket of justice, as I call it, blanket of security over them. We will just take it as we go, step by step, and keep the place nice and safe.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rob.
Welcome.